What does the Quran have to say about the Injil? And what does the Quran not have to say about the Injil? Let's take a look. The Quran mentions the word Injil 12 times in all, and I've already done a video on this, but the word Injil generally means gospel or good news. Let's take a look at some of those readings. I'm not going to read all 12 because that would make the video too long, but let's take a look at the relevant ones. So let's begin with Surah 3 verse 3, and it says, "He has revealed to you, O Prophet, the book in truth, confirming what came before it, as he revealed the Torah and the Gospel." Now this sentence is split in two, so we have to read into verse 4 as well. So to read that again, he revealed the Torah and the Gospel previously as a guide for the people, or for people, and also revealed the standard to distinguish between right and wrong. Surely those who reject Allah's revelation will suffer a severe torment, for Allah is Almighty, capable of punishments. I think it's always very important as well when you read any verse from anywhere that you read it in context. You read the whole passages around it to get the feel. In fact, quite often it's essential. In fact, it's probably always essential actually. But anyway, definitely essential in this, especially with the two verses overlapping. Now, the first thing I want to draw your attention to is the fact it says book. He has revealed to you, O Prophet, the book in truth. So it's a singular book. So it's not referring to the Gospels. There's 4 Gospels obviously, and it's not referring to those 4 or one particular one. It's referring to a book. That's an important point. It's often claimed that maybe the message that Jesus gave, the gospel he had, was a spoken message, a separate message that was spoken and that it was written down by the disciples. And quite often people claim, I think they'll say that the book it's the gospel of, and then they'll take one of the other gospels because it suits them better, and they'll say something like the book of Thomas, okay, the Gospel of Thomas. And in my other video on why the Gospel of Peter was rejected, I do discuss these and say why it can't possibly be with the Gospel of Peter or the Gospel of Thomas or any of the other so-called Gospels. But the other thing is, we have to emphasize here it's a book. So what the prophet is referring to is one singular book. So it must be referring to either the whole of the New Testament that he had at that time, which had been put together in one book at that time as a canon, or even better, the whole Bible. So when he says the word Torah, he's usually referring to the law, but when he says Injil, it could actually be referring to the whole book of the Bible, because that's what he had in front of him. He didn't have segments at that time when he was alive, because the Bible had been established as one book, so he didn't have segments such as this is the Gospel of Peter, this is the Gospel of Thomas, this is the Gospel of Luke, this is the Gospel of John. It was one, it had been put together into one book, so he's obviously referring to that. Moving on seamlessly to the next one. So in this one, verse 348, it says, "And Allah will teach him writing and wisdom, the Torah and the Gospel." When it says we'll teach him, you've got to clarify who him is, and the background is given in the previous verse where it says, "Mary wondered, 'My Lord, how can I have a child when no man has ever touched me?' An angel replied, 'So will it be. Allah created what he wills. When he decrees a matter, he simply tells it be, and it is.'" So that verse reveals it's talking about Jesus, the son that Mary had. And Allah will teach him writing and wisdom, the Torah and the Gospel. So if we just look a bit more at the context there, and make him a messenger to the children of Israel to proclaim, "I have come to you with a sign from the Lord. I will make for you," and then there's the bit about the bird having life breathed into it, which we won't go into, and other bits that are not really relevant to what we're saying here. But it's always a good idea to look around the context. not much at this moment in this context to draw from that, other than that he's going to teach him writing and wisdom. So it's implying really there that Jesus' ability to write was taught directly by Allah, by God Almighty, gave him wisdom and the Torah and the Gospel. So now we jump to 5:46 and 47. I'm two verses together here that mention the word Injil or Gospel, but let's have a look at what it says about them. Then in the footsteps of the prophets, we sent Jesus, son of Mary, confirming the Torah revealed before him, and we gave him the gospel containing guidance and light and confirming what was revealed in the Torah, a guide and a lesson to the God-fearing. So let the people, so verse 47 now, so let the people of the gospel judge by what Allah has revealed in it, and those who do not judge by what Allah has revealed are truly the rebellious. So I think these two verses are very significant. Again, the tying together the Torah with the gospel, okay, and confirming the Torah and confirming the gospel, and that they are brought us guidance and light, a guide and a lesson to the God-fearing. So that's the purpose of them. And then we've got the next part where the people of the gospel, so that's the Christians, are instructed to judge by what Allah has revealed in it, and those who do not judge by what Allah has revealed are truly the rebellious. So I find these verses extremely revealing, and it's at this point, it's a good point to point out that there's nowhere in the Quran does it say that the Injil or the Gospel or the Bible or the Torah or the Psalms or any parts of it are being corrupted. Not one place. In fact, these two verses are saying the opposite, very emphatically saying the opposite, and they're instructing the followers, the people of the book, etc., to follow it carefully. And then it goes on to say that those who do not judge by what Allah has revealed are truly the rebellious. So there's an interesting thought there. That implies, well, and more than implies, states that if you reject the gospel, you're actually truly the rebellious. So when some Muslims say things like, oh, the Bible has been corrupted, and as I've said, nowhere in the Quran does it say that, and if it does say that anywhere, then please feel free to correct me, put something in the comments. But nowhere in there does it say that it's been corrupted. And anybody who says it's been corrupted is actually truly the rebellious. So that's a challenging thought for a lot of Muslims. So by rejecting the gospel we have today, rejecting the gospel that Muhammad had, that Muhammad saw, so they are rebellious. Just to clarify a point there as well, I did say the gospel we have today, the Bible we have today, is the same one that Muhammad had. It is, because we have manuscripts that predate the times of Muhammad by a long way. So we know that the versions that he had are the same versions we have today. And I'm not referring to the English translation, I'm referring to the original manuscripts in the Greek, some Latin, etc., but particularly in the Greek, and some in Aramaic as well. The Peshitta is in Aramaic, and a lot of the early church used that. So there's a challenging thought for you to think about. So again, moving on seamlessly to verse 566, Surah 5, verse 66. And had they observed the Torah, the Gospel, and what has been revealed to them from their Lord, they would have been overwhelmed with provisions from above and below. Some among them are upright, yet many do nothing but evil. And scrolling down to verse 68, we get this. Say, O prophet, O people of the book, you have nothing to stand on unless you observe the Torah, the Gospel, and what has been revealed to you from the Lord. And your Lord's revelation is to you, O prophet. You will only cause many of them to increase in wickedness and disbelief. So do not grieve for the people who disbelieve. So what we find here is that in these verses, 2 verses, the prophet Muhammad is making it known that there's going to be people that hear the message and reject it. So there's going to be people who call themselves Christians, there's going to be people who call themselves Jews and follow the Bible or the Torah, the Old Testament, or follow the New Testament, or correctly follow both of them. And they're going to make that claim, and they're going to be disobedient to God. They're going to do evil things. And there's no disputing that. That is a fact. We can see that through history, and that's a fact. So that's a fair comment, indeed, that people will reject the message. But that's not the same thing as saying the message has been corrupted. So I emphasise that again, that there's nowhere can you see in any of these readings, or the ones I haven't quoted, where it says that it implies, or any other verses in the Quran that imply that the scripture has been corrupted. So I think at this point it's a good place to sum up and finish. So really, to sum up, nowhere in the Quran does it say that the Bible or the New Testament or the Old Testament has been corrupted in any way. It appears that it definitely looks like that Muhammad had one single book that he referred to called the Injil. So not different parts, not different portions, but the whole picture, which was established by his time as one canon, both the Old and the New together as one book. So it's probably, when he says Injil, it's probably not only referring to the New Testament, it's definitely not referring to a single book like a gospel, but it could also be referring to the Old Testament as well. And the last point is that all these 12 references in the Quran to the Injil, to the gospel, are all positive, and I'll put it in a positive light and advise people to follow it, and then goes on to say that anybody who rejects it is the disbeliever, and they will obviously have to suffer the consequences for being a disbeliever. So Muhammad rebukes anybody who rejects the Gospels or the Torah. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but if you are a Muslim, then the Quran takes precedence over all. So in other words, if the Quran says that the Gospel and the Torah are to be trusted, then what does that mean? So I think that's a good point to end. Any comments, please place them below. I'd be interested to see them. I'll try and answer any that I can. And thank you for listening, and hopefully see you next time.